Today, you can order almost anything directly to your home. But did you know that one of the functionalities that makes online shopping possible is HTML forms? Without them, you would not be able to enter your credit card details during checkout. But forms are not limited to e-commerce. You can use forms practically every day on the internet. When you log into your favourite website, you do it using a form. In this video, I'll take you through the steps to create a form and introduce you to a few different input types. But first, let's briefly explore how forms work. To put it simply, when a user enters data on a website, an HTML form submits an HTTP request containing the data to the server. But how do you create a form in the first place? You define forms with the HTML form tags. Forms also have an optional form attribute called action. Action specifies the URL or path that the form should submit the request to. When the action attribute is not specified, it submits the request to the same path as the current web page. There is also the form method. With the form method, you can specify the HTTP method to use for the HTTP request. There are two HTTP methods to submit the form data: GET and POST. Remember, the GET HTTP method retrieves information from the server. The POST HTTP method sends data to the server. When a user submits a form, one of these HTTP methods is used. We'll explore how this is done on a later course. Now, let's explore how to add fields that the user can enter data into. First, let's add a simple text field. For example, a username field. The fields in a form are specified by input tags. Note that the input tag does not need a closing tag, but if I want to, I could close the tag by adding a / before the end of the input tag. When I use the text input type, it displays a text field on the web page. But a text box on its own isn't very user-friendly, so I will now add a label above it. By adding the label tag, the form will now display the word username above the input field. Next, let's add a password field. In this case, I won't use the text input type since I don't want the password to be visible. HTML has an input type specific for passwords that will mask the user's input data. The username will be visible and the password will be masked. Finally, I need to add a button so that the user can submit the form. So I use the input type submit. When the user clicks the submit button, the HTTP request containing the form content will be sent to the web server. In summary, you use the form tag at the start of a form, whereafter you indicate the method that should be used. You can create labels for input types with the label tag. You use the text input type for a text input like a username. For a password, you use the password input type. To add a submit button to a form, you use the submit input type. There are many different input types available. For example, you can add checkboxes to a form. To do this, you use the checkbox input type. You use the name and value attributes to configure how the data is sent to the server. Each box can be checked or unchecked. You'll explore this in more depth in a later course. Radio buttons, on the other hand, are like checkboxes, except only one button can be checked in the group. Checking one radio button will uncheck all the other radio buttons. There are also other types of input such as the number, email, and file upload types. However, some input fields do not use the input tags. For instance, the multi-line text field. The text input type that I showed you earlier is only for single-line text content. To allow users to enter multiple lines of text, I need to use the text area tag instead of text input type. Another type of input that does not use the input tag is a drop-down list which contains items that the user can select. This time, you use the select tag, and for the items on the list, you use option tags. You now know how HTML forms work and the different input types developers use. You covered form tags such as text, password, checkbox, radio, text area, and select. I can't imagine my life without online shopping. Next time you order something online, notice all the types of input the form includes and how you as a user interact with it. You might notice that the user experience of some forms is better than others. I am sure that you are now able to choose appropriate input types for the forms that you create.